Jillian Knowles. I'm so glad you're here, not only because you are a career coach, but you are a career coach that remembers we are more than just our careers. You do a lot of energetic type work as part of your coaching, and we're going to start by talking about well-being today, but I'm sure we will go in other directions. But beginning with that, job search is so freaking draining. The rejection, the uncertainty, the constant self promotion, even though I like to tell people it's service promotion, not self promotion. Either way, all of it can take a toll. So when I saw on your site that you have a framework that is called the energetic operating system, what does that mean? How do we get it? And how could we have gotten it yesterday? Thanks for being here.
Thank you for that beautiful intro. I'm so excited to be chatting. I'm so glad that we connected so rapidly and then jumped into this conversation and resonated so much with both of our areas of work, which is why I'm so excited for this conversation because that's why I was vibing out on your LinkedIn content in the past couple of weeks. I
We met
just
on
moved to the
LinkedIn.
States.
For all of
Yes.
my clients who are like, does LinkedIn work? Should I be posting? Yes, you can meet good people. This is the new age of networking. And so it would all start with you. I guess it started with my post, but you then were commenting and sharing. And I really appreciate that.
And it only started from my 18 months of solopreneurship, which was entrepreneurial isolation and the highs and lows of it. And I feel like LinkedIn was home at that point where I was making connections because I was isolated and living at home with my parents at 30 because I like bet on a big dream. So it was like LinkedIn connections where I genuinely have made friends and people that I root for constantly on LinkedIn. So I'm such a big advocate of LinkedIn. I know that people think LinkedIn is cringe or that it's all uber professional. And I'm like, guys, it's just a way to communicate and connect with people that like you have similar ideas with. Let's just be humans. And like it is.
It's interesting that I wanted to begin with how do you sustain your well being during the job search? And then we immediately go into LinkedIn. And I know people watching and listening are like, well, LinkedIn's where I lose my energy. So I don't know if you want to give some tips right off the bat on when somebody, whether it's the LinkedIn is the issue or not, if somebody is looking at the part of the job process as draining, how
Yeah.
might you counsel them to either see it in a different way, tackle it in a different way, or just accept that it sucks and recover with more grace as best as you can?
I love those options that you gave because I really think it's like the last one that hits. And I say it with like tough love and surrender that like it really does suck and we can recover and get through it and succeed succeed in it with grace. And I really mean that 10 toes down. I think what breaks my heart to see is that I hear a lot of stories of people who are like, okay, I submitted 900 applications and I'm working like crazy and I'm a machine and like I just anytime I see something, I'm submitting everything like that is the state that we're in, right? And I was coaching people through it, right? As I was building out my executive coaching practice. And then when I decided, hey, now I need to get back in the job, I surrendered my business building dream. I was like, I need financial stability. I got back in the job market myself. And although I knew it was tough and I was hearing the stories, it wasn't until I got back in it that I was like, wait, yeah, it's definitely tough. It's competitive, right? And like I have been on the other side, right? Like my trade is in the early careers recruiting space, like in a very harsh, selective space. I know how the hiring process goes, right? So I understand why it would be tough and competitive right now. That's what the market is, right? So I knew what my odds were, but at the same time, I was like, all right, I've earned my stripes. It should be tough, but it should be easy enough to land a role. And I was shell shocked by the amount of ghosting and rejection and silence. And that puts a strain. It triggers your self esteem of like, why am I not hearing back? It makes you feel really, it triggers you into survival mode. It has like a lot of emotional labor when you feel like this is out of your control, right? And yet you have to put in so much effort just to be seen. And then on the employer side, I had a friend who reached out, a new LinkedIn friend, Paul. He reached out and he was like, hey, Jill, like, great to connect. Like, I have a new software engineering role out. If you know anyone, please send it to them. Like, I would love for them to apply. I had just spoken to a student the other day that I was helping out who wanted that exact software engineering role. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, okay. I was like, this is me paying it forward. So I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, great. So can you, I think I had to, I don't know. I think I had, oh no, I clicked on the link. And by the time I clicked on the link, 24 hours later, the link was broken, right? The role was down. It was 24 hours later. And I like literally messaged him. I was like, hey, like I was about to send it to him, but it looks like it's down, blah, blah, blah. He got back to me in all the humility and he was just like, hey, Jill, yeah, like 2,000 applications came through like in the first 24 hours. Like I had to shut it down because it's really hard to manage. So sorry he wasn't able to apply in time. Operating in a way that depletes your system, operating in a way that demoralizes you only elongates the process and actually degenerates you in a way that isn't productive. And you really need your body on your side when you're going through this process. Like your body is what is fueling any of your potential outcomes of how the entire process is going. And I think people forget that like that actually comes first. And I will say that even though my month on the job process was tough, it was tough, but I landed a couple of great interviews with executive roles. I was interviewed for a global head position, and in the end, I wasn't the right fit. I didn't have the international experience, but because I was so unapologetic about what I do bring to the market, what I don't, I like didn't try to sugarcoat it. I was like, I don't have international experience, but if you need something built from the very like ground up, or if like you need me to do like an internship program or campus recruiting, like I'm your gal. And I was just so unapologetic with that. And so when they rejected me and they said, hey, you're not the right fit, I was like, I get it. I was like, it was gonna be a stretch opportunity if you put me into it. I was up for it, but I totally understand. And they were like, but we love your early career strategy experience. Can you actually do a consulting project for us? And I was like, oh, like the reframe with that, I was like, wait, okay, this is low key what I wanted. And because I was trying to build a talent strategy firm, right? But I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the financial stability to make it happen. And then the way that this came in, I think it just opened my eyes to like, there are other ways that we can be working. And that I think that we need to be working with what the market and what the economy looks like right now. We're like, if we all sit around and wait for just the typical 9 to 5 rules, we might be waiting forever. And that's not quite what the market needs right now. If we think from the perspective of companies, to be they need to be operating with such economic discernment with any hire that they make. So rather than trying to be a generalist, rather than trying to compete with a million people, just position yourself in a way where like you can show up as an independent contractor to them. You can be like on a 1099 with them. You can be a fixed term employee, like what I ended up being, and working on a very specific project where you're just doing your specific niche, one specific project for 3 to 6 months to a year, whatever it is. And you can just hop around from contract to contract and not feel like you were beholden to just this like evil like endless like pit of no return job market that we're honestly in right now. And that's why I say, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I'm talking a lot, but that's why I say that it is really tough. And I think that you just need to be honest about that so that you go into the process being like, because it's tough, my body, my soul, like I'm anchoring my nervous system is going to be so locked in because I need to take care of myself because of what this process requires of me. And that is where the grace comes in. That's where the resilience comes in. Like resilience has benefits. Like it's that like resilience isn't this thing that we have to avoid, or resilience has benefits because grit makes you tough and then you get through it and then you end up having good results.
You build on it. I
Yeah.
think of the job search like an emotional marathon, and we go into it with this sort of sprint mentality, and then we get burned out and burnt. And also to acknowledge that we as human beings, we are wired to be social, meaning rejection by others is death to our biology. Like if you're kicked out of the group, you're not getting the bison for dinner. So when you get a no, whether it's in the form of an actual no or this awful ghosting or the bottomless black pit of the ATS that my clients talk to me about, that can feel not just a rejection, but like a death of some sort. Also, the death of an identity. If you are somebody who very much self defines as ambitious and what you do for a living is a huge part of who you are, and you actually celebrate that, that's me. I am what I do in large part. Then, if you don't get a chance to do it because you keep getting told no, what are you left with? You have to rebuild a whole sense of self from what? From a scarcity place right now that you're all stressed. So, all this to say, this is a terrible time, but in the terrible times, so much damn growth. I joke, I'm like, how much growth does anybody have from when things are going well? Maybe you could certainly learn from when things are going well, but in my experience, I really learn from when it is hard. When it is hard. Now, easier said than done. I want to talk about that fractional work for a quick second because that's what you were mentioning with getting this gig opportunity as opposed to the full time. I know that just came about from your great impression that you left, but for somebody who wants to be more intentional with it, do you recommend that they pitch themselves as a 1099? I know everybody's situation is different, but for someone who's like, yeah, I think you're right. I think my industry and my role, people aren't getting full time anymore. They're getting more of this freelance fractional work. Where does that kind of person even start to put next steps together?
Honestly, there are so many different ways that people are doing it and trying it out. And I'm just going to speak for what I think my biggest breakthrough with this has been is that I feel like the best thing that we can all be doing, honestly, is like looking at what our best strengths are in the workplace, right? What the projects that we have always gravitated towards, what our, I always say, like your Michael Jordan, like level skills are, like those sort of things that you have always been known for, most successful for. Take that is your service, right? That is like the service that you can be packaging together. Take that and then get it on a landing page.
Okay.
Get it on a landing page, price it, package it, like use pricing pathology, use like pricing psychology and buyer psychology in the way that you package it, and then build a personal brand around that, right? Like a very simple like website or LinkedIn profile that you are just representing yourself in a way of, hey, this is I have X amount of years in the industry. Here are my best specialties. Here's what I really believe. Here's a little bit of personality and like my story of how it all came together, right? That's how you're presenting yourself. You list out like all of your past experience and then you make it very clear that you have this landing page that shows how you work and how you can show up. And you show up in different ways and you have different sort of packages of how you can work with companies. And I think that you can work with a company in a way of, all right, you apply on a job board. You'll see that a lot of companies are hiring for fixed term employees right now, contract roles. So that can be your operating process of like, all right, here's my process of I'm going to apply and pitch myself in this way. You can get creative of emailing a hiring manager and saying, hey, I know that you're looking for someone that is full time, but this job has been up for 2 months and I actually have this particular experience. And if you bring me on for a quarter, here's my rate. And then you can negotiate or whatever. I think that we give up so much control to the system and feel if we don't have a corporate entity backing us, that we don't have value or like a good or service to barter, right? But we do. We just need to package it and position it. So you need your story, right? Put yourself in situations where either you're pitching yourself by applying, you're getting creative, you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn, you're asking your network, you're just having conversations in your community, letting people know, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. Before the financial system existed, like it was just people just like bartering goods and services. It was just like people being like, hey, I'm the neighborhood witch. Like I heal people and everybody knows me because I have great service. And then when people come and then I'm taken care of, I have money, I have self resourced stability. And
Yeah.
I think it's really empowering when you just like deconstruct that, like, yeah, the job market sucks. However, and let's get creative. Let's not think that is the only way that we can be getting paid right now. Let's take all the skills and like half-baked ideas and package ourselves and have conversations and use technology to our advantage.
Back to basics. It's much more straightforward than people think. I totally agree. This, if I don't have a corporation backing me, therefore I don't exist, or like my work doesn't exist. And I had a client today actually say to me, part of me needs, I need a backup plan. I just have this part that's going, I need a backup plan. And I said, girl, you are the backup plan. It is you, which I know sounds a bit BS. So we had to then move it into some action steps. So speaking of action steps here, people who are listening, they're like, this all sounds good, but I am just burnt the F out. I am so tired. I'd love to have some good practices, but I got to dig myself out of a hole first. Where do they begin?
Yeah, 1,000%. So this is exactly where the energetic operating system comes in because my first 18 months of entrepreneurship when I was in my solopreneurship era before I launched my firm. So that was like I consider that as that was before I got that consulting opportunity, right? And I was struggling. Like I was broke. I was like trying to build my executive coaching practice. I had just left the industry and I was like, all right, like I was at the same time that I was trying to like build a practice and scale an empire, I was like burnt out. I was in stage 3 adrenal fatigue and really just like years of burnout that I had never fully recovered. So my body was starting to shut down. And even though I was so excited to build my company, my body was like not letting me rush a business model. It was like, take it easy. So at the same time that I was trying to figure out how to work with myself and earn money, my body was making it clear that if you don't take care of me and restore me, I'm not going to let you scale anything. You're not going to be able to market yourself. You're not going to be able to be in the right headspace to create content that speaks to people. Like you got to slow down. Are you familiar with chakras?
Minimally, but I don't know how my audience, I'd be curious if y'all want to comment or
Yeah,
tell us everything.
I'm always curious because we usually hear about chakras in yoga spaces and whatnot, or spiritual spaces. And I always like to bring it back down to like nuts and bolts, like science. So chakras are just energetic hubs in our body, and they're associated with certain body parts and hormonal systems, right? And at the same time, they're also associated with a particular executive leadership skill set, right? So I'm going to give you examples. There's nine chakras. The sacral chakra is right down low in your belly, right between your hips, and it is responsible for productivity. It is responsible for your creativity. It's responsible for money making, for sex, for creation, right? And when you think about it, it makes sense because it's associated with the uterus.
Yeah.
It's where we birth children, right? It's where we have sex, right? It's associated with those sort of themes, right? And when you think about the collective burnout that we are all in, that this country is in, you think about the collective burnout that women are in, right? The trauma that we carry, right? The stories that we carry in our uterus, right? From years of carrying children, the highs, the lows, the men, the stories, the lack of boundaries, the relationships, all of that, right? That we carry down there. It's like inherently burnt out for all of us, right? That's the sacral chakra, right? But at the same time, a healthy sacral chakra is responsible for productivity, creative output, momentum, desire, pleasure, money making, right? All these really desirable things that we want. Once you understand it from that, you're like, oh my God, I am doing anything to protect my sacral, right? Because if I am self resource leadership, right? If I don't have some entity, it is just me and my body. Obviously, I want to be as productive and creative and momentous and healthy and regenerative in that area if that's going to determine how well I am bartering my goods and services, right? All of a sudden, you become real unapologetic about protecting your energy and your boundaries and who is around you and protecting yourself like the asset that you are because why wouldn't you? Like you are your only moneymaker. All that other shit like goes away and you start being selfish. And I mean that in the most loving way because you being selfish in like a world where we have been like miseducated and programmed in a really sad way to believe that being selfish is wrong as opposed to our divine duty to take care of ourselves and put our own oxygen mask on first so that we can be the best versions of ourselves and the most resource version for the next person. That's best for the planet. It's very simple stuff that we've just gotten away from. And I think it's just like a mindset reframe.
If the word selfish is triggering for people or man, I can't do that, it's self-led. Okay. You are leading yourself is leading, is one other way to put it. What does that look like in practice? A small everyday thing that somebody could do, and also in the moment when they're in a situation where they have to apply for the job. It'd be nice to say, my boundary is not applying for any jobs. When you have to deal with the world, how do you make sure that you are putting your oxygen mask on first?
Totally. So I think it's like my go-to like recovery tools, which are, I think a lot of it comes down to boundaries, right? And it comes down to knowing what you need and just having a bank of options that you can deploy at any time when you start to notice that something's off and like you just need to get back on good kilter and good speed for you. So for example, that looks like rest and recovery cycles. I'm like going to get into like really simple stuff. It's like rest and recovery cycles. We act like we are supposed to operate, especially women. We're operating as if we are men who are operating on a 24-hour like hormonal system, right? Women are operating on a 28-day biological operating system. Like we are on a different planet in so many ways, but our systems and the way that we've all been working and like just the way that we've been like programmed to approach our days has been the absolute opposite of that. And our sacrals have been telling us that with how many of us are having infertility challenges and really tough challenging periods and fibroids, right? And all these ways that our sacrals are saying, why aren't you on my side? Why aren't you working in a way that we can both be on the same side? And it's to no one's fault of their own other than having I like to say, the period cycle literacy to take care of yourself first by working in a way where every single week you are operating your emotions, your hormonal system, your moods, your body, your physical state feels different every single week of your cycle, right? If you are on a typical period cycle, that means that your habits and your tasks and your work environment should be changing week to accommodate your body first. And it can be really simple things. And it was interesting when I went back into corporate after 18 months out, I was challenged because I was in stage 3 burnout, but at the same time, I was developing all of my teachings that I now teach in my firm. And I was actively developing like burnout recovery methods. And like my most challenging test subject was myself, right? And I was like really working on it, but I also had such flexibility because I had put my apartment in New York up for sublease. I like very humbly moved into my parents' house and they like took me in and I was able to experiment with all this stuff and I just had the chance to both recover my body in the ways that I'm talking about and try out this period cycle literacy, for example. But then when I got back into corporate, it was like, okay, can I do this in a corporate system? Can I like do this for me when I'm expected to get into office? And you can, like, as long as you're in a company that has somewhat flexibility with a couple days of hybrid, at least a month, you can do this for yourself like tomorrow. And I always tell people that start that tomorrow. If your cycle is irregular, like my sister has an incredibly like horrible irregular cycle, you just need to start working cyclically. And I say this to men as well. Anyone who doesn't bleed, if you're menopausal, you still follow the same sort of like cyclical working rhythm theory, but you just use the phases of the moon
Okay.
as your environmental anchors, like more as just like reminders and cues. Like you can set it up on your GCal as like a physical reminder of, oh, this week I start doing this just to pace yourself throughout a month, just so that we're not all operating like this all the time, because we're not supposed to be. Like we need to be like with earth and grounded right now, especially right now with everything that's going on. Like we need to be like in our bodies and like taking care of our nervous systems first. And our nervous systems are our performance edge. So, anyway, let me get back into some more tools. So, rest and recovery cycles, right? That's an example of that. Sabbaticals. I was on an 18-month sabbatical from talent strategy before I came back into it. And with what I'm working with now, celibacy, right? At the same time, sex, but only if it is healthy, consensual, and deeply attuned to your desires and taboos, I say. Like it is like you need to be doing things that are so regenerative for your sacral if you really want this sort of like output and benefit and like productivity and creativity gains that you could be getting. Dancing. With dancing, it's with your hips and your legs. I'm a dancer, so I'm always like dancing. So it's dancing. I have ADHD. So if you're neurodivergent, you need productivity frameworks that are neurodivergent friendly. I always direct people to the Todoist.
I want to talk about boundaries for a second because that's a word that's come up a few times with you, and it's a great way to protect your energy. What are some common traps, energy traps that you've seen your clients fall into, slash, you probably fell into yourself during the job search process? And then how do you set boundaries? And oftentimes, I think these boundaries are probably with yourself more than anybody else. So that's a common misconception. Boundaries inherently have to be you versus someone else. No, oftentimes it's actually just you versus yourself. So, what, yeah, boundaries in the job search. Tell me, what are your thoughts about that and how to put those into practice?
For sure. I think that comes down to knowing what you need, right? So if we think about all those tools that I just mentioned, and then when you feel off, it's just knowing, yeah, sometimes you're going to need to communicate with someone like, hey, I need to turn in early tonight, or I need to like take a night where I'm sleeping in a different room tonight, or I need to take a weekend to myself, or I need to wake up early. I need to do whatever I need to do. I need to show up for me. And you just communicate that proactively and with love. And I think a lot of times we don't do that and we feel like we can't ask for what we need when really all we need to do is, or the first step that we need to do is we don't need to spend too much time pathologizing it, right? Because it's really easy to do that. And that's important in some ways, right? But also, you just need to know how to communicate it. So it's know what you need
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to proactively say it and just say it nicely. I always say, type it into Chat GPT if you need to find the words for it. We can script things very quickly. Like we can move quickly when we do these things. Yeah. So I think you need to show up for you, especially when it comes to you need to show up and keep up the best stamina possible when you go through the process. So that's why it's important in the job search process. And you need to do things like for your emotional health as well with the like emotional labor. Sometimes you might need to like go in your room and put on a screamo song and get out all your feelings and frustrations or like journal or rip something up and go to a smash room or I'm always like singing and dancing and whatever way to release all the emotions from like the that keeps you healthy and that also gives you more energy that actually helps you show up better to the interview the next day. Like you keep your confidence up. And I think that's why it's important. Like the boundaries are gifts to yourself constantly. And I think once you get to the point of, and I will admit, I got to the point of being so selfish with boundaries, like in a really unapologetic, radical way that I know pissed a lot of people off, but was also really groundbreaking for me because I was such a people pleaser. And also, I managed a huge team and just very close friends, close family, all of that. But when it finally wore on my body, I was just like, Jill first, like I was just boundaries
There
for
was no
so
choice. There was
I had
no
no
choice.
it was exactly. It was survival. And I was like, whoever's left on the other side of this, I know is meant to be with me on this journey and understands and trusts that I have to choose me in this moment. I started to very quickly realize was like a gift to myself. Just this act of like self-love that it just ended up naturally being. And that warmed my heart again. And then all of a sudden, I was ready to communicate nicely with people again and from an emotionally regulated place again. And I was ready to rebuild relationships and build new relationships and operate in a new reality. But that took like that 2 year process, right? And that's why I say that solopreneurship was like the best spiritual endurance training camp that
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know that I needed in my career because that whole experience built that in me. And I needed that before I launched a firm. And
Yeah.
I think I was trying to put the cart before the horse before. Like I was not financially stable. I had not invested in the right resources to know how to build the properly. I had not done enough market research most recently to know what the market really needed. And that was what my time back in corporate
Yeah.
unlocked for me. And I was like, oh, I can package things that way. So I think that's why we all just need to be nimble. Take what you need. It's get it done however you got to get it done. And if you decide that like your ideal is like a 9 to 5 and you want to like milk that till the cows come home, do that. Great. Capitalize on that. I recommend at the same time that everyone starts just preparing themselves with having the tools to be able to have a side hustle at the same time and put their skills on a landing page and just be able to provide for yourself on the fly and stay ready, because are these systems not crumbling down? We all have to look out for ourselves. So that's where I think the boundaries come in, because you have to have discipline, right? And I'm so naughty with myself, right? So I don't always like I was in dance school growing up, like my whole life, ballet, tap, at like 5 days a week, right? I know discipline, right? But I also have ADHD and I'm like a woman and blah. Sometimes discipline sounds really unsexy and boring. And
Or constraining, or
sorry.
constraining. That's negative.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when I was in adrenal fatigue, I was in really deep dopamine burnout. And with dopamine burnout and with ADHD burnout, like your dopamine receptors aren't functioning properly. So like my ability to have like motivation was like gone. And like for an Ivy League graduated, like crazy in her career woman to lose all motivation to work, like I would be laying in bed and being like, what's the point
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
work?
I've
Like
been
I was
on.
like,
Yep.
yeah, like my brain was gone. So I say that because like for me to build discipline in myself to be able to show up to the job market in the way that I did,
Yeah.
which was really just my body saying, Jill, you have recovered from burnout. You're ready to build again. That was your training wheels of getting back on the job market, was like getting your body ready to work in corporate again and like work again and like eventually launch your business when you like did the right steps and you got the experience you needed.
You needed to build the foundation before you could build the house. And the
Yeah.
house is going to look different for everybody, right? Your house is a hybrid company and corporate clients, or now full-time company. Somebody else's house might be the full-time job search to a full-time job, but the foundation is always the same, which is it's your body and how you manage your energy, and energy as it manifests through your emotions, through your physicality, how you receive it, how you alchemize it. Nobody gets a pass on that. And also, a lot of this stuff is short term versus long term. So, short term would be saying yes to everything or saying no to yourself. That's a short term decision because you don't want to feel the pain associated with setting that boundary. But now you're making a long term sacrifice, a long term energetic sacrifice. So, I think it's about meeting yourself in the moment and putting yourself first. But sometimes that means actually doing a hard thing, like setting a boundary. However, you could do it with love. I think that's your tagline, should be with love for a lot of stuff, because I love the juxtaposition of sometimes it's like tough situation, but with love. And a lot of this is
Right.
carrying contradictions in both hands. That's so much of why this work is fascinating, but also difficult, because you are navigating multiple things that can present what at least first appears to be a contradiction. Putting yourself first and being able to show up for others, doing something for your bank account and for your soul. Oh man, and it's also ever evolving. Just at that 28-day period alone, what you figured out last week that worked for you isn't necessarily even what's going to work for this week. But I think instead of getting bogged down in the exhaustion of the work, to see ourselves as a continuous project, the most interesting, greatest creative project ever of experimentation. And with that, we need guides, we need perspectives, we need the books, we need the tools. Stay curious, everybody out there. If anything you take from this is read more, dig more into it, learn more, practice more, can experiment more. You will find something that works, and then you will build upon it. And I guess be open to whatever the house ends up looking like for you. Last words of wisdom, Jill, for us here, things that you wish you could get on a megaphone and just tell job seekers from your own personal experience and working with clients, and of course, how to become your client.
Choose your theme song. So, whatever song is going to get you up out of bed every day, and maybe you need to change it with the season. At certain times, mine was All Stars by Smash Mouth. At other times, it was like Just Got Paid, Friday Night, like that oldie song. That's my mom's favorite. Other times, it's like Energy by Disclosure. Like, whatever your theme song is, just choose it and motivate yourself through that. I wrote a comment on someone's content on LinkedIn. So, going back to LinkedIn,
Yes.
LinkedIn would be great like insight and motivation if you like curate your feed with what you like. So I've been curating my feed lately. That's how I found you. So curate your feed, take control of your feed. You'll like LinkedIn better. I recommend that with all social media tools. Go into your own world with social media. But anyway, someone posted about how I don't know what the post was about, but whatever the conversation was about was sometimes when you need to build confidence in something, You just need to do, right? Like you just need to take the step and I don't know, you need to trust fall a little bit to build the confidence. And that can be hard when your ego's bruised, right? That can be hard when you're starting to question your worth and your sanity and like your ego's crushed. And that's like what the job process like makes you feel like. It can be like demoralized. So that's why I say choose the song that's going to get you up out of bed, right? Choose the song that is going to like get your mind operating and like seeing things from the right POV for whatever moment of the day that you need. Like maybe it's right before the interview, maybe it's before you are sitting down like with your family and you want to be in the right headspace. Like whenever you need it, choose it, use it. So that's what I would recommend. And then to get in touch to work with me. So I work with people in a couple of different ways. I work with companies and teams for Gen Z talent strategy. So think internship programs and curriculums for a lot of the things that we just discussed, for talent operating systems and employer branding. And then I work with individuals and leaders. As an executive coach, I work with people for peak energetic performance, personal branding and visibility, and for career pivots.
This is great. I'm loving the new direction I'm finding coaching going into that's much more holistic. It doesn't put our bank accounts and our bodies in separate silos. They all go together and we have to fuel it. Like the buck stops with us, not with our employer. It is we are our own backup. And so getting tools that you share today, I think are invaluable for everybody. And I love using ourselves as examples. You have lived it. So you know that this stuff, it works.
It works. It works. It can be fun, like it can be pleasurable, and it's being like nice to yourself. It's just, I think it's just like reframing things and just doing things differently, but I think that we deserve it.